Jim White, we're ready to go. Give me the high sign. All right, I got the high sign. Thank you. Appreciate all of your assistance. I want to welcome everybody to the council meeting for this evening. I now call the April 7th, 2020 regular meeting of the City Council to order. Our invocation tonight is going to be given by Councilmember Tyson Hermes.
All right. Father, thank you for everyone attending and watching this meeting here this evening. For each mind and heart that fills the presence of the many rooms as we gather virtually, we thank you. Only you truly know what we are setting out to accomplish today. We have an idea, a vision, hints, and daily instructions. We have talents, abilities, and time to work. However, only you can see in perfect detail the end of every beginning, every project, every uncertainty, every season, every life. Nothing is in vain, for even mistakes, crises, and missteps are used for good. Your righteousness transcends all our efforts and understanding. Forgive us for our pride. Strengthen our confidence in you and who you have made us to be. Set us free from comparison in order to work together efficiently. Bless this meeting this evening, all those present, as well as the lives of those we will encounter afterward. Ready us to make every moment count. In Jesus' name, and in the memory of the recently departed Terry Allen, amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Okay, now we are going to join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag, United States of America,
and to the republic
for which it stands,
On the nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
That was fun. So before we get started, I'm going to just go over a couple of little procedural things since this is our first regular council meeting, so it's going to be a little bit longer with a little more pieces to this puzzle tonight. When we are needing, when one of you guys is needing to talk, if you can physically raise your hand so that I can see you, and then I'll call on you. It's really difficult, and we want to keep from talking over top of each other. So it's a way to make it easier to be able to hear everybody. Then also when Mrs. Hoffman does roll call, do it the same way that we did it the last time. State your name and then put present, and then once we're voting, state your name and then how you want to vote for that particular legislation. Does anybody have any questions about that before we get started? Okay, all right. So Mrs. Hoffman, would you mind taking roll, please?
Mr. Burke,
Kevin Burke here.
Mr. Cahill,
Tom Cahill, present.
Miss Kyle,
Vicky Kyle, present.
Mr. Skidmore,
Don Skidmore, present.
Miss Sudcamp,
Excuse me, Patty Sudcamp present.
Miss Cahill,
Cahill present.
Mr. Meyer, Miss Skidmore,
Let me unmute her. Okay, go ahead.
Skidmore present.
Miss Pitts,
Corinne Pitts present.
Mr. Nicely, Miss Reckers,
Rebecca Reckers, present.
Mr. Hermes.
Tyson Hermes, present.
Thank you so much. All right, so you've all received a copy of the minutes for the March 3rd, 2020 public hearing, the March 3rd, 2020 regular council meeting, and the March 2020 special council meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to be done at this time? Okay. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion that we adopt as presented. Mrs. Kyle and Mr. Hermes. Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. All right. So you've also received a copy of tonight's agenda for April 7th, 2020 regular council meeting. Are there any additions to be made at this time?
I have a change I would like to make.
Okay.
I would like to motion that we take 2 items off the agenda under legislation. We've got number 1 under legislation, the compensation of elected officials, and number 3, the community achievement scholarship increase. If you remember at our last regular council meeting on March 3rd, I had asked for those items to be put onto the agenda for the council committee meeting. And that council committee meeting got postponed, or actually canceled, because of the coronavirus. So we've never had an opportunity to discuss those items as a group. So since there is no urgency to vote on either of these items, and since we haven't discussed them, I would like to ask that they be tabled and discussed at the next council committee meeting.
Okay. So that's a motion that let's do, Jack, should we do separately or together?
We need a second.
It's the motion to table both, correct, Mr. Hermes?
To table
Yes.
both.
Yeah.
Mrs. Sedkamp?
I second the motion.
Okay. Do we need a roll call or all in favor? Jack?
I personally think tonight, probably roll call on all of these. I know that's just safest since it's hard to hear.
Okay. Kaufman, can you do a roll call vote? We have a first and a second motion.
Miss Sedkamp,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Cahill,
Tom Cahill, yes, ma'am.
Miss Skidmore,
Renee Skidmore. Yes, ma'am.
Miss Kyle,
Vicky Kyle, yes, ma'am.
Mr. Burke,
Kevin Burke, yes, ma'am.
Miss Cahill,
Kathy Cahill. Yes, ma'am.
Miss Pitts,
Corrine Pitts, yes, ma'am.
Miss Reckers,
Rebecca Reckers, yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hermes,
Tyson Hermes, yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Mr. Skidmore.
Skidmore, yes, ma'am.
Motion carried. Gary was just trying to get on. I want to make sure he can. He wouldn't let me admit him, so if we could just take a brief moment.
While we're waiting for him, I would like to just say thank you. I think that this is really incredible that we're able to meet like this virtually. But I do think that because of the awkwardness of working through Zoom, as well as not necessarily having the community and our residents present at the meeting, I think it really is important that we stick to items that are essential business for the city. Anything that's not time sensitive really, I think, shouldn't be discussed over these types of Zoom meetings unless it's, something that's urgent.
I agree.
I agree.
I would like to also make a change when you're ready.
I'm trying to, oh, Gary.
Okay.
And a party down at Joe Run.
I see Gary's face.
All right. Where is he?
Oh, I don't see him.
I don't think,
All right. Gary, test your audio real quick.
I'm here.
Okay, Corrine, you said that you wanted to make an alteration?
Yes, I would like to know if it's okay if we table the demolition incentive ordinance for the similar reason that Tyson mentioned, that it's not, as far as I know, a time, there's no, we don't have to do it right away. It involves a fair amount of money. And I would like to table it till we have more certainty on what's going on.
Okay, so we have a motion. Tyson?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, is there any discussion? Rebecca, do you have a discussion?
Yeah, I guess just real
No,
quick.
I was going to second.
So Rebecca second, but I mean, I know we if we're going to approach that again for next fiscal year, though, that we'll have to still push forward with it in the next at the next meeting, so that we can have that first and second reading in advance of the fiscal year.
Yeah, that was the only piece of,
Yeah, the piece that I think Matt and I had actually talked a little bit about that item, and while we could certainly still move forward with it and not fund it as we get into the budget cycle, so we'd leave a program out there. It doesn't necessarily specify how much funding we were forcing for the program. I know that there are the whereas clauses, suggesting that it's $100,000, but as far as I recall, and Jack can help me out here, the whereas isn't actually part of the ordinance. It's just kind of that descriptive stuff around the context of the ordinance.
I would agree with that. Whereas is not a part of the ordinance.
So, Corinne, are you thinking that we may not want to go forward with that program at all?
No, me, it's strictly the money.
Yeah.
It's not the program, it's the money.
Yeah.
And just the uncertainty right now.
It's highly improbable we'd be able to fund it for 2020, 2021.
Exactly.
Corinne, would you be okay if we had a first reading on it tonight and then we discuss it at the committee meeting as well?
I mean, I'm fine with that.
And then just hold it for the second reading?
I'm good with that if everybody else is.
Okay.
I mean, can I ask this? So if we vote on it after discussion, it doesn't have to include any of the money?
It doesn't force us to allocate any money in the budget. It just develops the program, and it specifies what our desire was. That's part of where it was. But it's not forcing any money to be allocated in the budget, like when we did the K-9 ordinance. That one forced budget. This would still leave us the opportunity at budget time to strike that money from the budget if we felt it wasn't appropriate to do at that point in time.
Okay.
I mean, another solution is, we can revise this first reading not to include the second and third whereas provisions. provisions. I mean, honestly, whereas provisions don't really have any applicability, and it's frankly, the second one's not accurate yet because you guys have not yet allocated 100,000 for the fiscal year, right?
Yeah.
So
That's correct.
we can just omit those two items when we do the first reading.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second. So Jack, if after discussion, we're not going to move forward, or do I need to?
No, you need a vote on, yeah, I mean, you need a vote on the motion and second unless the motion is withdrawn.
Okay.
Sort of sounds like the motion is being withdrawn. I don't know who made it.
I withdraw my motion.
All right. I think we're good.
I think it was Corinne's motion though. Does that make?
I withdraw my second. I don't know.
Corinne,
Turn your microphone on, Corinne.
Sorry. I withdraw my first.
All right.
Okay. Any other or additions to the agenda at this time?
Yeah, I apologize for my lateness. I had two items that I had shared, and one of them was around the nuisance ordinance and the trailers. I know that there's some ambiguous language there on where and how, and I think even with the numbers. So I was looking to make a change there. I do realize that we haven't kind of discussed that in committee meeting. I would like to make a motion though to include that ordinance for a first reading this evening. I have had some I guess numerous discussions with Mr. Kramer around that, and I feel like it's in a good place. But so I'm making a motion to include the nuisance ordinance first reading on the agenda for this evening.
Is there a second? I do not see a second.
Okay.
Can I just make a comment?
Sure.
This is one of those things that I think we need citizen input if we do discuss it. And right now, I don't think we can do that. That's the only reason I didn't second it. Because it's something that could affect some people. And so I don't like to make any changes like that while we can't have people come to the meetings.
I'd agree. I think it should probably be discussed at a committee meeting before we have a first reading.
Right.
Okay.
The other item that I was looking to add, I shared a municipal order, just adding a few elements back into our meeting so that we could hear from different individuals. I know we're still including some of those anyway, but as I start to see some other areas, I would really like to hear from the department heads and have a little bit more updates from them on a recurring basis. So that was one of the three things that I was looking to potentially add back into the meetings, so that I can move to add that municipal order that I've shared to the agenda for tonight.
Do we have a second?
My second.
Okay. Any discussion? I have discussion on that. This isn't something that's been discussed at a council meeting. Really for anybody to have any kind of input. So I highly disagree with putting it on the agenda. Kind of what we typically do. So just my thought. And considering we're trying to with our meetings right now, especially with the current situation, we're actually pulling off things to be more streamlined and sticking to maybe essential items. So to add a whole bunch of stuff back into the agenda right now, the timing doesn't seem very good. And I mean, I think it is worthy of some conversation, but maybe after situation has passed. Any other discussion?
I agree with you, Madam Mayor.
I think that's fair.
We should streamline these meetings and only discuss the important things and put everything on hold until we know the outcome of this.
I agree as well. I think it's extremely difficult to conduct Robert's Rules of Orders in these virtual meetings.
So I guess I guess if we're gonna have a little discussion around it, how long do we wait? You know, if this continues for another 2, 3, 4 months, you know, do we not provide those updates? Do we
Well,
not share that information?
just to give you some information, Gary, during the mayor's meeting, for the mayor's report, I am not speaking. I'm turning the mic over to Chief Rader, Chief Whitaker, Sherry, and Peter Glenn to give an update on what changes they've made in the city operation, because I think it's pertinent information. You just know what's going on. You guys want to know what's going on. So we've made that change for today, and you know, just picking out things that are critical and essential to the change of operation. So we will be adding that type of information in today. Okay, any other discussion?
I think that's fair. I do want to ask, when people are talking, can most of us mute? Because when a lot of us aren't muted, we could barely hear.
All right, so I have a first and a second on that motion. So I'll need roll call vote. Sherry, please.
Mr. Skidmore,
She called you dog.
We have lost Don's video.
I got a low battery.
I can come back to him. Mr. Hermes,
Tyson Hermes, no ma'am.
Miss Reckers,
Rebecca Reckers, no ma'am.
Mr. Meyer,
Gary Meyer, yes, ma'am.
Miss Pitts,
Corrine Pitts, no ma'am.
Miss Cahill,
Kathy Cahill, no ma'am.
Mr. Burke,
Kevin Burke, yes, ma'am.
Miss Kyle,
Vicky Kyle, no ma'am.
Miss Skidmore,
Renee Skidmore, no ma'am.
Mr. Cahill,
Tom Cahill, no ma'am.
Miss Sudcamp,
Patty Sudcamp, no ma'am.
Mr. Skidmore,
Don Skidmore, no ma'am.
that's 9 nays and 2 yeses.
Okay, so motion fails. Are there any other changes to be made to the agenda at this time? Okay, so the only change that we're making is we're removing legislation number 1 and legislation number 3. Okay. Now, let's see here. Do I have a motion that we adopt with these changes included? Mrs. Kyle, Mrs. Sedkamp, all in favor, say aye.
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 Nay, or opposed? Okay, motion carried. We don't have any special presentations tonight. And then the public comment, that I was actually sent one. And I'll give you guys any other opportunity if you received any from others. So this one is from Linda Markwell. She is a resident that lives on Zeta Court. She said, please acknowledge the Erlanger Police Department for me tonight during the meeting. The grassy patch in our cul-de-sac, we've lived here for over the years. Different neighbors agreed to take turns with cutting it, and neighbors have moved away and new ones have come in, and they don't seem interested in participating. I emailed Public Works at 11:30 a.m. today and asked if they could maintain it, and they literally were there in 10 minutes. Big service. So I'm gonna do awesome. Pass along Linda's shout out to you guys. A great job. I am not surprised by it. Do any of the rest of you have comments from any citizens that you've collected? Okay. We'll go ahead and move on to the mayor's report. I'm going to keep it simple. I just want to again give a shout out to Mr. Kramer, who's doing an absolutely fantastic job in this city during this crisis. I could not be more proud of him. All of the department heads have kicked it up into high gear. They are all doing absolutely wonderfully, which again is no surprise. So with that being said, I want to turn it over to Chief Rader first of the Erlanger Police Department to give an update. Go ahead, Chief. Thank you.
Good evening. So obviously this is some trying times for all of it's certainly uncharted waters that we were somewhat prepared for, and we're making changes on the go. First and foremost, I just want to thank our officers and our sergeants. It's a time like this when, all of our command staff is working from home and we're not in the city every single day. Nobody would know from the outside, but the PD is running just like it does every single day. So, some of the changes that we have made, obviously, are to adhere to some of the CDC guidelines as far as social distancing. It's kind of against a cop's nature to handle calls, from the street and from the car, and call people out into the yards. And it's certainly been a learning experience for us. But, as far as our response to calls, the city is getting the same service we always have. We're doing it in a little bit different manner. Our officers are, like I said, getting used to maybe relaxing on some of the self-initiated activity and just more reactive. But with that being said, and the way times have changed, you'll notice in the council that we've done more business checks this month than we've done the whole entire year. So we're kind of keeping up with some of these businesses like Kroger and the dollar stores and some of the local businesses that have food and items of higher commodity right now, I guess, so to speak. Some of the other things that our PD prides ourselves on is, interaction with the public. And right now that's really hard. Some of you, I'm sure, have heard about it or saw it on our Facebook page, but this last weekend, some of the guys decided that they were going to do a couple little mini parades with the assistance of the fire department, which was awesome. And we kind of drove through some of the neighborhoods. I know we hit Misty Creek. I believe we hit Greenfield. We also drove through some of the east side subdivisions, Lakemont and Sherborne. It was a great success. The kids, I think everybody heard the sirens and at first thought the world was falling apart, but then, saw us driving in, and we got a lot of really, really good compliments on it. So we're going to continue to do that. We made a little spin on it the next couple weekends. It's kind of dependent on weather. We don't want to do it if, you know, the people are out in the yards and the kids are out there and we can make that positive contact. See, one of the last thing I kind of wanted council to know is we as a command staff have sat down and looked at our schedule to see what we can do. If God forbid we have some infections in the PD. We have come up with an A, B, C, and a D plan in order to continue staffing what we consider our minimums on the road with everybody from SRO to me working the road and our lieutenants and everybody has. We have schedules that will virtually be able to work that will cost the city $0 in overtime. So we're pretty proud of that. We know that, you know, times are tight right now, and it's just something that we've worked on. And like I said, God, you know, half the PD comes down with this coronavirus, but if it doesn't, we're in good shape, and we'll be able to continue to give the citizens the service that they have come to expect. So, does anybody have any questions for me?
Great job, Chief.
Thank you so much, Kyle.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your update. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have Chief Whitaker next from the Erlanger Fire and EMS Department. Give him a second to jump on. There we go.
Hi, guys. Good evening. How is everyone?
Good.
I think I'm going to echo a lot of what Chief Rader just discussed. You know, when this hit, we kind of mirrored what the state did. And I want to thank city administration for that, actually, because I think we were really, we led the way. I mean, initially we took, within our department, we immediately stopped doing any kind of outside inspections. We shut down pub ed events. And much like Chief Rader said, you know, our community functions just ceased. We also put limits on guest access to our stations. Command staff immediately transitioned to home. And I think staying ahead of that curve that you hear so much about was really beneficial, and it's shown. I've been submitting daily directives, at least I did for about the first week and a half, because the information that we were receiving was just such an influx. We tried to filter it to the crews. And in doing that, we created a couple spreadsheets, which are actually used. I want to brag on the command staff for a couple of these, because our monitoring in-house exposure form is kind of the standard now in Kenton County. We developed it right off the bat. And what that was anybody that was suffering these symptoms and our crews, they were doing an in-house exposure form. This is not to say that they were exposed. This is to say that they were in contact. To date, we've done 18 of those. Of course, I think everybody's familiar that we did have first confirmed case. Other than that, we have tests that were negative. And currently, we have 1 test pending. There are 2 exposure forms completed today, but I don't have the results from the hospital on that. So one of the things that command staff is doing, and primarily this would be Deputy Chief Wolf, she follows up every day with the hospital to find out the condition of these patients. Another form that we created was our Ppe Inventory. We're pretty solid on that now. We monitor that every day. We do inventory on a daily basis. So every run gets monitored. Our electronic EMS reports monitor our PPE, and we go back and we keep track of all that. So these are just little things that we've done to try to stay ahead. And if you've watched any of the governor or the president, the whole thing is being prepared. You're not totally prepared, but I really feel that we've done a good job. The crews, of course, I cannot say enough about these. These are the people that are out on the street. I cannot say enough about how they have maintained their composure, maintained their positivity. We've had 2 department-wide meetings. The first meeting I called, it was early on. It's when we had 2 of our members quarantined. Both are back to work. Both were asymptomatic. Both of those folks are back to work. But within 20 minutes, we had every member locked on a Google Meet. So the folks that are out there are dedicated. They're doing just really wonderful things, and are maintaining positivity. I keep constant contact with them. And as Chief Rader alluded to, I mean, so what do we do now? We're not doing inspections. We're not doing pub ed events. Guys have shifted to do hose testing because we can do that in-house. We don't have to keep that comfort. We can do hydrants out in the public, but still maintain the social distance. So those are some of the things we're doing. Command staff is covering for certain individuals when need be. We are one member down. And again, echoing Chief Rader's sentiments, our command staff is fully prepared to go in and work the street if need be. So we're there. Again, the credit should go to those people on the street. They're doing a great job. I talked to Matt Allen on the day that Chief Allen passed, and obviously when we're able to give him the respect and the ceremony that's deserved, the fire department will be there to do anything we can. That's a tough situation right now, on top of a tough situation. But we've reached out and we'll be working with the family once this all settles down. So, any questions for me? Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay. We have Director of Public Works, Peter Glenn.
Mayor, Council, thank you for the shout out on the Zeta. Public Works is working hard to increase or decrease our grass response time to get on par with police and fire department. So we're hoping to get those numbers down. So typically we don't have a 10-minute response time, maybe 2 days, but we'll take 10 minutes. Let's just talk about Public Works. It's a good diversion from the topic of the day. So with that, if council remember back last year, we in Public Works bid out all of our capital projects. It was a tough bidding season. All the contractors were busy. The economy was rolling, and it was difficult to get people here to do work. So a lot of our projects got pushed off. We had to rebid them. And now, unfortunately, this spring, we're going to be super busy. We have well over $1 million worth of capital projects outstanding. And now with the healthcare crisis going on, it's really greatly affected the starting and stopping and starting again of our projects. So with that, we have the Silver Lake Street Improvement Project that's ongoing. We had the contractor actually show up. That's JPS Construction, and they tried to get out and start on the project, and then they quickly realized that they weren't really doing what they needed to do to protect their employees, so they pulled off the project. They're also working on the Woodchase project as well, so they pulled off that one. So we've kind of started it and stopped it. We've done everything we can to contact the residents in the area and to make sure that everybody's up to speed on what's going on. Right now with JPS Construction, they're like every other company, just trying to figure it out, what they're going to do, when they're going to be able to do it. Once they know, we'll know. We look and anticipate for them to be back as soon as possible. Their construction seasons, an infinite amount of time, so they're going to want to get back as soon as possible. And we'll get notices out to all the residents once we hear a new start date. Lakemont, Shearborn, Ashmont, Narrows, and Old Turkey Foot, those asphalt overlay projects, that's the one we rebid last summer, and Michael's Construction currently has that, and we were hoping mid-April to get a start date. That's still a little bit up in the air. Michael's, again, they want to start as soon as possible, so they're just kind of waiting, week by week to see what's going to happen. We've got signs out there notifying all the residents what's going on, and we'll, again, provide better starting dates once we know it. We do have a contractor still working. He's doing some sidewalk replacement work and then some subcontracting for JPS. So you'll see a little bit of construction work, just doing sidewalk and some driveway apron repairs. Moving forward, we're looking into our next budget year. We've been working with Jim Beox and his staff and getting all our projects designed early. They work real hard and efficiently to get all of our projects designed early this year so we could go to bid early. So that way we can get everything approved and have a more or less July 1 start date. That's kind of gone out the window. All the projects are pretty much designed, ready to go, but we don't feel as though with everything that's going on, it'd be prudent at this time to go on and actually bid the projects. So we're going to kind of stand back and take a wait and see approach to those as well. That's Valleywood, Carriage Hill, Delphi, and Besson Wood. So we're drive. So we're going to be just kind of waiting on those projects as well. In-house, we've done a great job here at Public Works. I feel as though it's continuing meeting all of our essential job duties. All of our crews are working. We're maintaining normal working hours. We've separated out all of our operational staff into 5 different locations. So we're fortunate to be able to have that capacity to do that. So all of our crew sizes are down to 3 employees or less to really minimize exposure to other team members. So we're going to continue on working with grass cutting, mulching, pothole patching, and park maintenance, and just keep up the speed on everything we're doing there. Things that we're doing to address the COVID-19 crisis, we have crews out there cleaning all of our facilities twice a day. We're wiping down all of our benches in the public right-of-way daily to keep them sanitized. We've closed all of our park shelters. We've kept the park restrooms closed. They were closed all winter long. We just continue keeping them closed. And we've closed all the playground equipment and playground areas, but yet leaving all the parks open to the general public, other than those areas that I mentioned. So that's pretty much it for Public Works right now. Does anybody have any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Hoffman?
Well, the administration department, we just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that even though our front doors are closed, that they can still call our 727-2525 phone number. And they get Nyoka. She's answering all the calls. She's answering all their questions. If she's not able to, she transfers them to the appropriate person. Steve Canfield, he's at home answering all the building and zoning questions. We're still offering, we're still able to do a lot of the services that we normally can provide, but there are a few things that we're not able to do. And so all of our events had to be canceled or rescheduled. And we're all keeping a close eye on what's going to happen in May, and home, she's watching that and already coming up with some other ideas of what she may need to do there. Because the shelters are closed, we had to call the people that had reserved shelters in April and suspend their permits. And then we're not taking any more shelter reservations at this time. The Depot Museum was supposed to open in March, so we did not open it. We were going to reopen it in April, but right now we're keeping it closed until further notice. The farmers market was supposed to open at the end of this month, so we have postponed that. So we're going to watch to see what's going to happen in May. We're not scheduling passport appointments at this time, and we had to cancel some of the passport appointments that we already had. And just an update on our waste collection. So Republic Services has updated us that they are not picking up large items right now. Usually our residents could put out large items and a separate truck would go by and pick them up, but they're not doing that right now. They're asking that people don't put anything out, bags or anything. They want everything in the totes, so that way their drivers don't have to get out of the trucks and touch anything. They're doing that for the safety of their drivers. So right now, they only are picking up stuff that's in totes. Other than that, everyone has done a really good job. I know that Joe's been great about getting information out on social media for us. And, you know, there's some things that we're not able to do right now, but we're still able to provide a lot of other services still.
Any questions, Hoffman? Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I appreciate you all getting on the call and giving us an update on what's going on. Next on the agenda is the city administrator's report.
Good evening, everybody. As you guys have already heard, you know, the staff is, all the essential services are being conducted in the city. We're doing, you know, inspections, permits, PD, fire, public works are all doing the tasks that they need to go and take care of. You know, the staff has been incredible. On the 15th of March, Sunday night, I make calls to all the department heads and let them know we were going to go minimal staffing that following day. Within 24 hours, every department produced a new procedure of how they were going to handle their at-home operation. And, you know, they made updates that whole week. And by that Wednesday, you know, 3 days later, we had a solid plan on how to do that. So the staff has been incredible. They've had great suggestions for the city. The employees have been giving their directors and chiefs great ideas, which we've been utilizing throughout the whole process. So it's really been a good situation that we've been able to handle well. I should say the situation obviously isn't good, but we've handled it well. We definitely got to learn a lot from this, and the procedures we've already written are going to set us up for success in the future. In addition to all the COVID-19 stuff, you know, we've been dealing with a lot of other challenges the last 3 to 4 weeks as a city. The staff is focusing heavily on the budget, which I sent an email out letting everybody know. Next couple of weeks, we should have that ready for council's view. So just kind of want to give you an update on that. The staff has been extremely impressive, which should not be a shock to anybody. But we are moving forward and overcoming all the obstacles that we've had. You know, I know communication can always be improved, so we're working on that. If there's ever anything that you guys don't know, council needs to know, please call me. I've had a lot of calls, which is good. But if anybody has any questions, please either email, text, or call me, and we'll be sure to get the answers to you. Pending anyone's questions, that's all I have.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Okay, Mr. Gatlin, City Attorney's report.
Real briefly, Mayor and Council. There's obviously a lot of businesses that are hurting out there, certainly in Erlanger and in the region at whole. And I just, you know, every time I have an opportunity, I just want to let people know there's some programs out there through the Small Business Administration. Virtually every single small business is a potential candidate for, there's really 3 or 4 programs that are out there. So I don't really want to make a big spiel about it tonight, but just if you guys know small businesses, let them know that this is money that's, you know, I hesitate to say free money because there's no such thing as free money, but there's certainly some programs out there through the Small Business Administration that are really can be helpful with businesses. So they just need to reach out to their bank or their accountant to kind of begin that process.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, thank you. Okay, we've already gone over the report on capital projects. So reports on task forces. I can imagine that we've had many meetings. I don't think we've had a meeting of the summer send-off task force, the full task force, since this began. We have met with subcommittees, and I think those are still moving along well, but just kind of a wait and see game. Anybody else have anything, any task force updates? Okay. Any correspondence tonight, Mrs. Hoffman?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Are there any bids tonight?
There is. I do have a report on the, we had some items that were declared surplus on govdeals.com. The online auction ended today at 1 o'clock, and the results are that the ambulance, we received $10,004 for the ambulance, $8,995 for the Sullivan air compressor, $1,105.50 for the Bobcat tracks, and $449 for the bush hog.
Okay.
The only bid I have.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Hoffman. Any questions for her? Okay. Does anybody have any unfinished business this evening? If you want to raise your hands. Okay. Any new business that you'd like to discuss? Mr. Hermes?
I had one item I would like to get added to the committee meeting agenda, and that would be the discussion of the Erlanger employee incentive that Mr. Kramer and I have been working on.
Okay. We'll note that that gets added to the committee meeting agenda. Any,
Yeah, Mayor, this is Gary Meyer. I believe there was a few items that we tabled from the agenda tonight. Are those already on the agenda for the committee meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, we'll go ahead and add all of those to the agenda. We'll probably add back, we'll figure out how to get this done with a committee meeting. I know it's not going to be easy with Zoom. The possibility of us talking over each other is really likely. It just happens. So we'll have to figure out a creative way to get it done, but we do need to have a committee meeting.
Mayor, it's Matt Kramer. Can you ask Gary exactly what he wants on there, just so I make sure I have the correct list, and if anybody else has anything to add?
Okay, so we're going to be adding the compensation of elected officials, the community achievement scholarship increase, the demolition incentive ordinance. We're going to have the first reading, but we're going to also talk about it at the committee meeting. And then the Erlanger employee incentive, and then also the nuisance ordinance for the trailers, and then adding the items to the agenda. Is that correct, Gary?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, any other new business? Okay. All right, so we are on to legislation. Take it away, Mr. Gatlin.
Alrighty. I had it up on my screen, but then I had to change screens to unmute myself, so give me a second here. Okay, first is an ordinance of the city of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, creating a humane retirement for the non-human canine units. This is a new program which is allocating $2,000 per fiscal year budget for retired canine animals' reasonable expenses, including but not limited to food, veterinary care, medications, and proper boarding while the canine handler is out of town. This really is codifying a policy and procedure that was somewhat in place before. This is a second reading.
Okay, do I entertain a motion that we adopt this ordinance as read?
I move to adopt the ordinance as read.
Okay, Mr. Meyer and Mrs. Reckers. Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cahill,
Tom Cahill, yes, ma'am.
Ms. Skidmore. She's on mute. Ms. Skidmore,
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Kyle,
Vicky Kyle, yes, ma'am.
Mr. Burke,
Kevin Burke, yes, ma'am.
Miss Cahill, Miss Cahill,
Muted.
Kathy Cahill, yes, ma'am.
Miss Pitts,
Maureen Pitts, yes, ma'am.
Mr. Meyer,
Gary Meyer, yes, ma'am.
Miss Reckers,
Rebecca Reckers, yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hermes,
Tyson Hermes, yes, ma'am.
Mr. Skidmore,
Don Skidmore, yes, ma'am.
Miss Sudcamp.
Patty Sudcamp, yes, ma'am.
Okay, motion carried. Mr. Gatlin?
Yes, next we have is a, yes, I am unmuted. Next we have is a first reading and ordinance establishing an economic incentive and grant for owners of real property to demolish abandoned and blighted real estate. From the written version that you have, we are omitting the second and third whereas, the second whereas provision, since there has not yet been a budgeted amount. However, this ordinance does define what the definition of blighted building is, what would be the reasonable cost that would be reimbursed for that demolition, and that these would be matching grants not to exceed the lesser of $10,000 or 10% of the property. It also outlines the grant qualifications and certification. This is a first reading.
Okay, Mrs. Hoffman, if you can please note that in the minutes that the first reading has been read of the ordinance. Okay, announcements. Are there any announcements that you all have today?
Got a quick question.
Mrs. Cahill?
I'm just concerned. I was watching the news before we came on, and people are somewhat concerned, or a lot concerned, about Zoom and it getting information that it should not have. Has anybody checked into this, or are we being monitored, or is there something being done as to we aren't being hacked?
So I'll talk to that briefly. It's still being looked into, but I have the proper privacy settings. So there is a new meeting ID and a password that are required for this this particular meeting. The issues that they're running into is you can have the same meeting ID every single time and not require any kind of password, which if somebody gets your meeting ID, you use the same one every time and you're not using the password, people can get into your call. So for right now, I've made the privacy settings that to try to not have that be an issue. So and this is the best that we can do. Matt, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, from what I've been talking to people about, the big issue is, HIPAA related issues and things like that. All of our meetings are open to the public anyway, so I don't see a huge concern because of that. But again, I guess it's just how you look at it. But I know it's a big deal for a lot of businesses. I'm not sure, and people can correct me. I don't know how big of a deal it is actually for city council meetings.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Hermes?
Does anybody know what the funeral arrangements are for Chief Allen?
Yeah, Tyson, I'll send you guys an email. I'd rather not put it out on the meeting. I'll explain that to you and shoot you an email. Thank you.
Any other announcements or questions, comments, concerns? Ms. Pitts?
I didn't know if we wanted to make any type of public service announcement about the social distancing or block parties or anything like that, since we had some incidents over the weekend. Did we want to say anything, or do you want me to say anything, or do we just let it go, or?
So I've been putting videos out to remind people about that. The problem that we have, and I've talked about this with Mr. Kramer in great detail, because we have the same issue with the people going onto the basketball court. There's not technically anything enforceable. That's one of our issues.
Right.
So the people coming into, you know, that same woman that was talking with you, she was talking with me as well. And, you know, we can nicely remind them, and our police are doing that. But in reality, there's nothing that we can
Right.
worse or charge them with anything, because it's these recommendations that are coming down from the governor. That's just the difference between our state and some of the other states. You know, some states are saying there is a stay-at-home order, and here are the penalties involved with not following those orders. We haven't had that handed down to us. So it makes those types of situations difficult. So we can continually remind. I do put on the page, but you know, it's definitely something that we're aware of, and our police are monitoring the situation. So it is good to still call into non-emergency dispatch to report these situations. It's just whether or not they're actually going to heed the warning, heed the instructions. It's kind of up to that individual or that group of individuals. You know, if they're not, I said it this morning, you know, it's not really just about your life or the life of your family. You have to be thinking about others and other vulnerable populations that you're going to come in contact with at Kroger or, you know, any of the other places that you go out where you think you need to go there, and you probably do, but we still need to be paying attention to social distancing and cover your face if you can. Wear gloves if you can. I know I looked like a crazy person at Kroger the other day because I wore my mask and I wore my gloves, and nobody else was wearing anything. I was kind of surprised by that. But don't be afraid to look crazy. Just do it and wear your mask.
I'm seeing more people do that now, and I guess I want to tell people because I've been watching it closely, and they're saying now that more than half of the people that have been exposed are exposed by somebody that's not showing symptoms yet. And I just want people to be aware of that, because a lot of people think, well, they're not coughing, so I'm fine. But more cases of they're not showing symptoms yet when they're contaminating other people. So I just wanted to put that out there. And I also want to put out there that there was a national study released today or this week that Kentucky is one of the top ones in the country for how they're handling this COVID virus. And I think that's awesome. And just to continue that.
It is great. The way that I'm explaining it to my kids, and this might be crazy. I'm crazy if you haven't figured that out. But it's like a big game of Clue. We're at the very beginning of a big game of Clue, and everybody could be a potential carrier of this issue. So be on the lookout and be alert and be paying attention to your surroundings and follow the rules. So
yeah. Thanks. I just wanted to bring it up. That's all.
Yeah. Thanks for the reminder. I appreciate it. Anybody else have anything? Okay. All right. As much as it's been wonderful to see all of your faces, do I entertain a motion that we adjourn? Mr. Hermes and Mrs. Pitts, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 All right. Meeting adjourned. Have a wonderful evening, guys.
Take care.
Stay well. Take care. Love you all.
Stay safe, everybody.
You too.
Care.